and welcome to another episode of Belongs to the Shadows. I'm your creepy host, Jaime Bennett. As always, listener viewer discretion is advised. I hope that you enjoyed the last episode where I talked about Cleopatra, and I only think that it's fair to talk about King Tut, King Tutankhamun. Naturally, I should talk about him, and there is a supposed curse that happened, or, King Tut's curse. I will be talking about that as well. I hope that you're enjoying these podcast episodes. Please like, share, subscribe, follow, hit the notification bell, all those wonderful things, because they really, really, really support my channel. And it helps me encourage me to continue on with doing these episodes of Belongs to the Shadows podcast, of course. I do have a Belongs to the Shadows show, which I will start back up eventually. I will try to do some filming on location episodes. I am hoping to do an interview with the wonderful people that run the Sasquatch Museum, the Bigfoot Museum, however you want to call it, whatever you want to call it. I am hoping to do an interview with them at some point. I have not contacted them yet. So if you're watching this, surprise, surprise, I would love to do an interview with you. If you all have any suggestions of what you would like me to cover, haunted history-wise, supernatural, ghost stories, anything creepy, spooky, let me know in the comments below. I would appreciate it. I am not sponsored. If you would like to sponsor this show, I would very much appreciate it. That would be amazing and awesome if you would like to sponsor this show. And then, of course, tips, donations, however you want to call it, are always appreciated and welcome. I will put my PayPal link below. I don't usually like to do that because I don't want people to think that I'm begging or asking for money. That's not what I do. I do appreciate tips. I do. But I just want people to enjoy my show, share it, like, subscribe. That's all you have to do. You are free to sit down and watch or listen to these episodes of Belongs to the Shadows. Absolutely free. You do not have to leave any tips or anything. Don't feel like that I'm asking for money, because that's not what I'm doing. I enjoy doing this, and I enjoy you all joining me on these creepy journeys. So without further ado, let's talk about King Tut. And as always, I have to give credit where credit is due, so I will link the links that I'm getting, link the links that I'm getting this from down below. And disclaimer, I am very horrible at pronouncing things, so there's that. I'm very infamous at mispronouncing things. That darn dialect gets in the way every single time. All right, Tutankhamun. So, this is what started my love of Egyptian history right here. I was sat down with fellow students in a class. You know how, like, back in the day, they probably still do it, but back in the day, they would wheel the little VCR in there. Yes, I'm that old. They would wheel the VCR in there, and they'd pop in a history channel movie or whatever, and The Curse of King Tutankhamun was one of the movies that we got to watch, and it fascinated me. I was very interested, and that's probably what started my love for haunted history as well. Anyhow, let's see what we can find here. I like to be organic, and I know that people use that terminology a lot, like a lot. But I do. I like to be organic, and I like to look at these things as I'm talking to you about it. That's probably why I mispronounce things a lot. I've said that before. All right, this comes from Britannica.com, and it's a biography of Tutankhamun. So Tutankhamun flourished 14th century BCB. Man, I need to put my glasses on. That says BCE. Goodness gravy. Oh, I'm aging myself here. I need to wear glasses. He was a king of ancient Egypt, reigned in c. 1333 through 24. His tomb was discovered in the Valley of the Kings in 1922 during his reign. Powerful advisors restored the traditional Egyptian religion and art, both of which had been set aside by his predecessor. Oh, here comes a fun word to try to pronounce. Akhenaten. Akhenaten. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Who had led the Amarna Revolution. Wow. The parentage of King Tutankhamun, as he was originally known, Tutankhamun. He was originally known as Tutankhamun, but we call him King Tut. Remains uncertain, although a single black fragment originating of Akhenaten, Tel-e-Amarna, Akhenatens, there you go, Akhenatens, capital city, names him as king's son in a contest similar to that of the princesses of Akhenaten. Medical analysis of Tutankhamun's mummy shows that he shares very close physical characteristics with the mummy discovered in Kings Valley 55, Tomb 55 of Valley of the Kings. Some scholars identify these remains as those of, here we go with another word, Shimkaher. Oh, that wasn't so terrible. Who seems to have been current with Akhenaten in the final years of his reign. Others have suggested the mummy may be Akhenaten himself. With the death of Shimakar, the young Tutankhamun became king and was married to Akhenaten's third daughter, Ankha. Oh, this is a fun one. Ankhehenpaten, later known as Ankhehenpaten, probably the eldest surviving princess of the royal family because of his ascension. I'm thinking, witches and warlocks here, accession. He was still very young. The elderly official who had long maintained ties with the royal family, and the general of the armies, Hornheb, served as Tut's. We'll just go with Tut's chief advisors. I'm not meaning any disrespect, but some of these, they are tongue twisters. By his third regnal year, King Tut had abandoned Akhenaten and moved his residence to Memphis, the administrative capital near modern Cairo. He changed his name to Tutankhamun and issued a decree restoring the temple's images, personal, and privileges of the old gods. He also began the protracted process of restoring the sacred shrines of Anon. Now we're getting into words that Jamie can pronounce, which had been severely damaged during his father's rule. No prescription or prosecution of the, I need my glasses. Aton, Akhenaten's god, was undertaken in royal vineyards, and regiments of the army were still named after Aton. Wow. I'm learning stuff. I thought I knew a lot about the Egyptian history, but I don't, apparently. In addition to a palace built at Karnak and a memorial temple in western Thebes, both now largely vanished, the chief extant monument of Tut is the colonnade of the Temple of Luxor, which he decorated with reliefs depicting the op- op- Opet festival, an annual rite of renewal involving the king, the three chief deities of Karnak, Anon, Mut, and Khons, and the local form of Amon at Luxor. Okay, so I'm going to stop right here. Here's an interesting fact. Where I'm from in southern Illinois, we actually have a town called Karnak. We have a town called Cairo. We also have a little Egypt. We have a town called Thebes. So, yeah. Yep. I just thought I'd throw that in because it's interesting. I lived in southern Illinois for 37 years. And then I moved to lovely Georgia, which is where I now reside. And what's funny is I live near Rome, Georgia. So I can tell you that much. I'm not going to give you my exact location. Nosy. But we live near Rome, Georgia. And the reason why we moved to Rome, Georgia, this is a funny story. I know I'm getting off the subject. I'm famous for that too. Funny story. We moved here because of the Remus and Romulus statue. Yes. Yep. I decided to move here because of a statue. Of a statue. Have you ever seen the movie Blood and Chocolate? I mean, hello. There's wolf statues in there. And when I found out they had a Remus and Romulus statue, I was like, that seems like an interesting enough city to move near. So, yeah, there's that story. King Tutankhamun unexpectedly died in his 19th year. Wow, that's really young. In 2010, scientists found traces of malaria parasites in his mummified remains. And, ooh, this is interesting. And they found out that malaria was in combination with degenerative bone disease. So he had degenerative bone disease along with malaria. That might have been the cause of his death. Whatever the case, he died without designating an heir and was succeeded by I, who buried in a small tomb hastily converted for his use in the Valley of the Kings. His intended sepulture was probably taken over by I. Like other rulers associated with the Amarna period, Akhenaten, Simacare, and he was to suffer the posthumous fate of having his name stricken from later king lists and his monuments usurped, primarily by his former general Horemheb, who subsequently became king. Although King Tutankhamun's tomb shows evidence of having been entered and briefly plundered, the location of his burial was clearly forgotten by the time of the 20th dynasty, c. 1190 through c. 1077 BCE, when craftsmen assigned to work on the nearby tomb of Ramses V built temporary stone shelters directly over his entrance. The tomb was preserved until systematic search of the Valley of the Kings by the English archaeologist Edward Howard Carter revealed its location in 1922. Oh, wow. Inside the small tomb, the king's mummy lie with rewind. I'm stuttering. Let's try this again. Inside his small tomb, the king's mummy lay within a nest of 3 coffins, the innermost of solid gold, the 2 outer ones of gold hammered over wooden frames. On the king's head was a magnificent golden portrait mask and numerous pieces of jewelry. This is why they had grave robbers, obviously, because these royals would be buried with, a lot of times, with jewelry, with their possessions, and and if you're squeamish, mute me for a few seconds. And they would put certain body parts in jars, and those would be buried outside of the coffin. Also, sometimes their animals would be buried. Like if they had a pet dog, their animals would be buried with them. A lot of times when you see hieroglyphics, the reason why, and you're gonna probably giggle here because I'm gonna mention "Walk Like an Egyptian." The reason why that song came about is probably because of the hieroglyphics and the way that hieroglyphics are painted. Egyptians believed that in order to have all of their limbs, like both of their hands, both of their feet, you had to paint them all in the portrait. So, hence, walk like an Egyptian. Everything was shown in the hieroglyphics. So their burial traditions were just as interesting. They would, when they would embalm someone, they would, a lot of times, this is going to be very, very rough. So if you're squeamish, again, mute me. mute me for a few seconds. They would stick like a skewer-like thing. Yeah, skewer-like thing up through the nostril and yank the brains out through the nostril. Yeah. Interesting, huh? So they would be with jewelry, amulets lay upon the mummy, and in its wrappings, the coffins and stone sarcophagus were surrounded by 4 text-covered shrines of hammered gold over wood, which practically filled the burial chamber. The other rooms were crammed with furniture, statuary, clothes, chariots, weapons, staffs, numerous objects. But for his tomb, Tutankhamun has little claim to fame as it is. He is perhaps better known than any of his longer lived and better documented predecessors and successors. His renown was secured after the highly popular Treasures of Tutankhamun exhibit traveled the world in the 1960s and 70s. The treasures are housed at the Grand Egyptian Museum in Giza, Egypt. Wow. I think it's sad that he died at the age of 19. That's really, really young. But you have to think back in that time era, I mean, they didn't have medicine. Like, not as we know it, and they didn't have like the ability to do surgeries like we can now. I mean, obviously medicine has come a long, long way. I couldn't even imagine, living during that time era, honestly. All right, so we're going to get into King Tut's curse. So, the idea of the King Tut's curse originated from the deaths of several individuals associated with the discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922. While some deaths did occur shortly after the tomb's opening, many others involved in the excavation lived long lives, suggesting the deaths were coincidences rather than supernatural curse. I wouldn't be so sure. I am superstitious. The curse narrative. Okay, so the legend of the curse gained traction after the death of Lord Carnarvon, the financier of the excavation, shortly after the tomb was opened. That makes sense. I mean, if a curse did exist, wouldn't you want to curse the person who financed the excavation? Yeah, I would. Other deaths, including those of individuals like Arthur Mace and Richard Bethel, were attributed to the curse by some, fueling the narrative. The curse was seen as a consequence of disturbing the tomb of the boy king Tutankhamun in his final resting place. Yeah, we need to learn our history, and I think that, archaeology is important. It is. But to what extent do we need to disturb these tombs? I mean, think about it. After, years and years and years and years and years go by, would you want somebody disturbing your tomb? Like, honestly, would you want that? Like, yeah, knowledge is power. I get it. And we do need to learn our history and learn where we came from and all that. And, I know that a lot of times they do these excavations and, you know, archaeologists are respectful. They appreciate the knowledge that is gained from their work. But sometimes you have to wonder, if is it going a little far? I mean, King Tut was only 19 years old. He was still basically a child. I mean, I know at 18 you're considered an adult, but he was basically a child. He didn't even have kids of his own. Sippy, sorry, my throat was getting dry. I mowed yesterday, and I have allergies really bad, and it is hot. It is very hot here. Whew, too hot for mowing, too hot for all that. Anyhow, on with the story. So let's dive more into this curse, shall we? Oh, goodness. So, debunking the curse itself, coincidence. Many who were involved in the excavation lived long and healthy lives, including Howard Carter, the lead archaeologist, who lived 17 years beyond the excavation of the tomb's opening. Statistical analysis. A study published in the British Medical Journal showed that those who entered the tomb lived an average of 20 years after the discovery, with an average age of death around 70. I think that the movie that I watched that talked about this King Tut's curse was actually called The Curse of King Tut, but I'm not for sure. I can't remember. It's been a very long time ago. I mean, I'm aging myself here. I'm as old as dirt. Okay, maybe not that old, but it's been a while since I've watched that movie. Scientific explanations. Some scientists have suggested that the deaths could be attributed to radiation exposure within the tomb or even toxic mold. Alternative theories suggest that The deaths were caused by fungus, such as Aspergillus niger and Aspergillus flavus, found on mummies and in tombs. So, in conclusion, the King Tut curse is largely considered a media fueled narrative. While some deaths did occur among those associated with the tomb's discovery, statistical analysis and scientific explanations suggest that there were likely coincidences or due to natural causes rather than supernatural causes like a curse. So apparently there was like 9 victims of King Tut's curse. So let's go into that. This comes from mentalfloss.com. And the article was published by Stacy Conrad. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. Hopefully I didn't just butcher it. On October 25th of 2022. And the title of this article is 9 Victims of King Tut's Curse and One Who Should Have Been. They have lovely pictures and all that. So when I put the link below, you can check that out for yourself. So on November 4th, 1922, a team of researchers led by British archaeologist Howard Carter, like I mentioned earlier, discovered a step that marked the entrance to King Tutankhamun's tomb. When King Tut's tomb itself was unearthed on November 26th of 1922, after more than 3,000 years of uninterrupted repose, some believe that the pharaoh unleashed a powerful curse. Yeah, you disturbed his slumber and peace. This curse was of death and destruction upon all who dared disturb his eternal slumber. For some reason, I have that picture of that cave of wonders in Aladdin. Who dare? Okay, not sponsored by Disney, but I had to mention it. Like any urban legend or media sensation, the alleged curse of the pharaohs grew to epic proportions over several years. There are 9 people who supposedly might make you believe that the curse actually existed, and one who should have been direct recipient of that wrath 100 years ago. Okay, so here's the first person. George Herbert, 5th Earl of Carnarvon. Hopefully I said that right. He's the man who financed the excavation of King Tut's tomb. He was the first to succumb to the supposed curse. Lord Carnarvon accidentally tore open a mosquito bite while shaving and ended up dying of blood poisoning. Shortly thereafter, this occurred a few months after the tomb was opened, in mere 6 weeks after the press started reporting on the mummy's curse, which was thought to afflict anyone associated with disturbing the mummy. Legend has it that when Lord Carnarvon died, all the lights in his house, or according to some accounts, all the lights in Cairo, mysteriously went out. Ooh. I've had blood poisoning. It's not fun. I scraped my foot on a sidewalk when I lived in Southern Illinois, and I got streaks going up my leg. And so I was taken to the hospital. I got a very lovely tetanus shot and some antibiotics, and it was not fun. So the second person on this curse list is Sir Bruce Ingham. Howard Carter, the archaeologist who discovered the tomb, gave paperweight to his friend Bruce Ingham as a gift. The paperweight appropriately, or perhaps quite inappropriately, consisted consisted, maybe they should have been more considerate, consisted of the mummified hand wearing a bracelet and was supposedly inscribed with the phrase, "Cursed be he who moves my body." Ingram did not die from the mummy's curse, though his house burned to the ground not long after receiving the gift. When he tried to rebuild, it was hit with a flood. Yeah, I would say it's a curse. That's just a little too coincidental, if you ask me. Okay, the third person on this list is George J. Gould. George J. Gould was a wealthy American financier and railroad executive who had visited the tomb of King Tutankhamun in 1923 and fell sick almost immediately afterwards. He never really recovered and died of pneumonia a few months later. Okay, so these are seeming very, very coincidental. Way too coincidental. The fourth one on the list is Aubrey Herbert. It's said that Lord Carnarvon's half-brother suffered from King Tut's curse as well. Simply by being related to the amateur Egyptologist, Aubrey Herbert was born with a degenerative eye condition and become totally blind late in life. A doctor suggested his rotten, infected teeth were somehow interfering with his vision. So Herbert had every single tooth pulled from his head in an effort to regain his sight. It didn't work, of course. He did, however, die of sepsis as a result of the dental surgery, just 5 months after the death of his supposedly cursed brother. That's crazy. Number 5 on this list, Hugh Evelyn White. Hugh Evelyn White was a British archaeologist who visited King Tut's tomb and may have helped excavate the site. By 1924, after seeing death sweep over about 24 of his fellow excavators, Evelyn White died by suicide. But not before writing, allegedly in his own blood, "I have succumbed to the curse which forces me to disappear." Number 6 on this list is Aaron Ember. American Egyptologist Aaron Ember was friends with many of the people who were present when King Tut's tomb was opened, including Lord Carnarvon himself. Ember died in 1926 when his house in Baltimore, another house burning down, his house in Baltimore burned down less than an hour after he and his wife hosted a dinner party. He could have exited safely, but his wife encouraged him to save a manuscript he had been working on while she fetched their son. Sadly, they and the family's maid died in the catastrophe. The name of Ember's manuscript, The Egyptian Book of the Dead. Okay, so this all makes me think of the Mummy movie. Like, if you've never seen the Mummy movie, please go watch it. Not sponsored by the Mummy, but it's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite movies. Oh, yeah. I love The Mummy. I saw it in the theater, and I absolutely love that movie. Of course, I love anything that has to do with Egyptian uh, storylines. I don't know. But the Egyptian Book of the Dead, I have like a copy of it, and I find it to be interesting. Really, really interesting. And if you have seen The Mummy, you'll know why I brought it up, because they talk about the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and then I think that they also talk about the Egyptian Book of Life in there as well. The 7th person on this list is Richard Bethel. Bethel was Lord Carnarvon's secretary and the first person behind Carter to enter the tomb. Uh-oh. Danger, Will Robinson. He died in 1929 under suspicious circumstances, though one modern historian had attributed his death to the work of infamous occultist Aleister Crowley, which I will be talking about Aleister Crowley eventually on this show. So, stay tuned. Bethel was found smothered in his room at an elite London gentlemen's club. Soon after, the Nottingham Evening Post mused, in quotations, the suggestion that the Hon Richard Bethel had come under the curse was raised last year when there was a series of mysterious fires at his home, where some of the priceless finds from King Tutankhamun's tomb were stored. So, no evidence of a connection between artifacts and Bethel's death was established, though. Number 8, Sir Archibald Douglas Reed. So, this right here, what I'm about to tell you, is supposed to prove that you didn't have to be one of the excavators or expedition backers to fall victim to the King Tutankhamun's curse. Sir Archibald Douglas Reed, a radiologist, merely x-rayed Tut before the mummy was given to the museum authorities. He got sick the next day and was dead 3 days later. So, this is seeming way too coincidental for me. Way too much of a coincidence. Number 9. James Henry Breasted. James Henry Breasted was another famous Egyptologist. There we go, we'll get it right. Egyptologist of the day. He was a member of Carter's team when King Tut's tomb was opened. So shortly thereafter, he allegedly returned home to find that his pet canary had been eaten by a cobra. Poor canary. And the cobra was still occupying the cage. Since the cobra is a symbol of the Egyptian monarchy and a motif that kings wore on their headdresses to represent protection, this was a rather ominous sign. Breasted himself didn't die until 1935, although his death did occur immediately after a trip to Egypt. Number 10. Here we go. Number 10. Howard Carter. Carter never had a mysterious, inexplicable illness, and his house never fell victim to any fires. He died of lymphoma at the age of 64. His tombstone even says, in quotation, "May your spirit live, may you spend millions of years, you who love Thebes, sitting with your face to the north wind, your eyes beholding happiness." Perhaps the pharaohs saw fit to spare him from their curse. That's interesting. Very, very interesting. Like I said, I watched King Tut's Curse, or whatever the movie was called, many, many, many years ago. And I don't think that all of this was in King Tut's Curse. Of course, I think it might have been a National Geographic movie or History Channel movie or something. I don't know. And of course, it was probably dulled down because I think when I saw it, I was in 4th grade. 4th grade. So many, 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 many years ago. Anyhow, I hope you all have enjoyed this episode of Belongs to the Shadows podcast. Catch Belongs to the Shadows podcast every Monday right here at 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm not sure what I'm going to talk about on the next episode. I might talk about more Egyptian stuff, or I might move on with a different subject and come back around to the Egyptian history. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe I'll talk about Aleister Crowley. We'll see. We'll see. Anyhow, I hope y'all have enjoyed this episode. I apologize for mispronouncing things, but hey, I gave you a disclaimer at the beginning of this podcast. So, I gave you a warning. I did give you a warning label. Yeah. It is hot here in Georgia. I am not able to think straight at this point. I've been getting heat exhaustion because trying to get this darn yard mowed. It is crazy trying to get this yard mowed in this kind of heat. It's so hot that I have had to put a fan outside to cool down when I do decide to mow. It's ridiculously hot out there. But I'm glad to have a short little break from the rain. It has been raining nonstop. That's why we haven't been able to get our yard mowed. It's crazy. But anyhow, I hope y'all have a great night or day whenever you are listening to this. And until next time, stay creepy.